Hello everyone and welcome back to Delivered, the show where we talk with changemakers all over the world about what makes successful digital products actually succeed. Today my guest is Alexander Say, Head of Product Design at ManyChat. ManyChat is the company that invented comment to DM. So every time you've been on Instagram and you've seen an influencer drop some insight in a video, and then afterwards they say, if you would like a guide on this or a PDF or a course or learn more, they will say, oh, comment coffee and I will send it to you. And then it starts this one-on-one direct conversation in the Instagram DMs with the influencer or whatever it may be. That's what ManyChat does, and it has resulted in ManyChat being one of the fastest growing companies that is serving the creator economy right now. So that's also why I wanted to bring Alex on here, because I would like to pick his brain on what it means to build a design team in a hyperscaling company. And this is something that Alex has done many times before. Alex has been leading the ManyChat design team for the past year, growing the team from a group of 8 to now being 21 people across 2 offices. So that's like a 2.5 increase in a pretty short amount of time. So I was curious to get Alex in here to talk about his point of view of design leadership and also how it changes now that AI is part of every team. So let's get into it. Hello, Alex.
Hey, Georges.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you today?
I'm good. 2 double cappuccinos in though, so I'm a little bit jittery. So let's see if we get through this, but I think it will be fun. So let's just jump straight into it. Tell us a little bit. I gave a little bit of an intro, but tell us about yourself and your career journey. Who's Alexander Say?
Yes. So my journey started here in the Netherlands back in 2000, studying graphic design, and then from there I went straight to technology and product, moving to Denmark, working at Bang & Olufsen, where I really understood that design is strategy, and I learned holding a really high bar for craft, but also high care for different point of views, working with engineers, people from all kinds of backgrounds, shipping products that are really exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like in Europe there's not that many companies that would compete with Bang & Olufsen when it comes to craftsmanship in its category. So.
Back in the day, the company we compared to was mostly Apple. That was, I think, the one bar to meet, mostly for the engineers. Because it also, I was working there when the iPhone came out, and well, I think everybody was just shocked by the build quality and let's say amount of innovation in such a small space. The engineers were actually quite scared not being able to deliver a similar quality and innovation at that time.
Oh, cool.
Right.
And after that?
After that, I went into innovation consulting, ended up at Cognizant, building the digital innovation studio here in Amsterdam with a big group of researchers and designers across the world. And from there, I entered Mendix. So from consulting, I went to in-house design, where I turned a 5-people product design team, centralized into a co-located 40-something people organization, introducing design research, research operations, multiple design system iterations, and also the leadership perspective.
And what did you do after Bang & Olufsen?
When I came back to the Netherlands, I did a couple of freelance jobs, worked as a teacher at the HRO and the HVA, had my own design conference, building out a design community, had an entrepreneurial stint, founding a company, running a design agency, but ultimately I ended up in innovation consulting, joining Cognizant in 2016.
Yep.
And building out the design boutique capability that they acquired in order to scale their delivery functions.
Yeah. And after Cognizant, you went to Mendix,
Yes.
which was then part of Siemens?
Yes, so Mendix was
Or it is part of Siemens?
Yes, Mendix was acquired by Siemens on my first working day, 1st of October in 2018.
Fun.
And I joined them reporting directly to the CTO and the CMO to bring the product brand and marketing together with product design and R&D in Rotterdam. So I was working across Boston and Rotterdam timelines, and I scaled the team from 5 product designers to more than 40 people.
Wow, almost 10x.
Yes, almost. And introducing research operations, research capabilities, service design, scaling the design system, creating a proper design system, and also developing my hiring framework and processes.
Cool. And then you ended up at ManyChat, but we already know that. So let's move ahead. So what's 3 fun things we should know about you?
So 3 fun things about me. I have built my own camper van during COVID that we now travel with. And it's...
And for the record, I've seen that camper van, and it's the most insane off-road adventure machine I have laid my eyes on.
Thank you. It's also very comfortable. It's like we're going to go skiing next week for the first time with the van, and we have hydronic heating, floor heating, which is still a prototype, but the next iteration might be even on the market at some point.
And you build it yourself?
I built it myself.
And it took, how long did it take?
I think during COVID I had a bit of extra time doing research, but the whole project took 2 years and almost cost me my marriage, but ultimately it was worth it.
Well, now you have it, right?
Now we have it and we enjoy it.
It's very impressive. It's very cool.
Thank you. But it's also a really nice way to travel because it slows things down. It gives our kids like the same space, you know, and it's a real nice way to explore Europe and be a lot more free in your decisions where to travel to.
Very cool.
Well, some other fun facts. Well, I'm drawn to Eastern practices, so I like to practice yoga, qigong, and also martial arts. So once a week I have this fighting class where we do practice infighting, hit a boxing bag, attack each other with metal blades and that sort of stuff. But it's a real nice way to, well, level, and reset the week.
Quite a lot of adrenaline going on then in both fun facts with Adventure Van and the martial arts.
Yes, you could say that. But also, I mean, there's always this duality also in martial arts, and you need a practice that grounds you. Yeah. And so most of the time, you try to get into building the capacity to absorb that stress, especially in martial arts. And so you're often just practicing in front of a mirror and trying to get a movement perfectly. Or you might know this from like some kung fu movies, these wooden dummies.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically you train your body to do a movement perfectly. And so the dummy gives you feedback and helps you correct, well, how you position your arms in correlation to that other person. And these drills, I think, is something where you lower your stress. But then I think what you do in training is like you raise the bar continuously. So from a simple drill to like mixed drills where you don't know what's coming to ultimately going into the ring, practicing sparring, where the stress level is highest, you can, by following these steps, you can slowly build the capacity to be pretty chill when shit hits the fan. Actually.
I did not know that. Very cool. So let's get in today's topic, design leadership. So let's start with the easy question, maybe not so easy. So first question, what's fundamentally different about designing and building digital products in the AI era?
Well, with AI in the room, you can build anything extremely fast. And so you can produce a whole lot of stuff that's useless. Because doing the wrong thing right is only nearly as good as doing the right thing wrong. And so it really matters deciding what to build
Yeah.
before you start prompting.
Is that a little bit like, so there is a lot of more means to the end now?
Yes,
So like
you could say that.
wireframes, for instance, is a means to the end. It will never see the final product, but it adds value to the process.
Well, I think it depends on, you need to decide what still adds value to the process and
Yeah.
what gates, quality gates and stages you need to augment
Yeah.
and you can fully automate, and what decision points need to be human, because the way I think LLMs operate, I mean, they are pattern recognition machines. There's no intelligence in AI at all. And adding the human into the loop gives you that situational awareness. We experience reality very, very different. And from that perspective, I think humans really make a difference, but they need better decision-making mechanisms. They need better inputs, they need the better research, they need the better data to decide if it's actually worth building something or if it's just a fad. And so I think what design leaders and designers currently risk, I mean, there's two risks. Either you don't adapt and you will die. There's nothing like a Figma jockey anymore. People that...
How do you mean with a Figma jockey?
Well, designers that attach their identity to tooling and a certain part of the craft that might just go away. It's so much easier to prompt, to take a good prompt or a scenario, put it into Figma Make, and out comes a fully functioning working prototype that's even then hooked up to your design system. I mean, nobody can produce a quality work that fast. I think it matters then to decide what parts to keep, what parts to throw away, and how to iterate in that cycle.
Yeah.
But if you do not know what you're looking for, if you cannot describe what to make, then you can create a whole lot of waste.
Yeah.
Not just in tokens, but also in mental load and in processing capabilities, and also attention and time. And this is something similar that also happened at Mendix, what I saw happening in low code. Teams can build very useless software and really shitty software extremely fast. Building the right thing, building it well, that is what still is very difficult, I would say.
But would you say that these new tools are is a net good still? Like
yes, I would say this is the best thing that...
You're still making it faster.
Yes,
and
I think
it's faster is good.
Yes, in that sense, faster is good, but also it's like delivery will collapse to zero. So if you look at the design process, it's these stages from the fuzzy front end, right? The design squiggle. Let's take the design squiggle. I'm not a big fan of the double diamond or the triple diamond, but everybody's using it. So at the end, you have delivery. At the beginning, you have the fuzzy front end of design. This is the total opportunity space where you could do anything.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and so how do you learn about these opportunities in a structured way? This is still very, very human centered. This is where you need anthropologists, researchers, people that take signal, fuzzy signal and noise, and then turn that into insights, into inputs in this process.
Yeah.
And there, from that point, once you have the proper inputs, strong signal, well, then you can correlate. And then from there, you can associate and extrapolate of what to build. But if you start from zero, it's like essentially saying, hey, I heard this from a customer, and here's the solution. Well, this is the biggest mistake you can make. Because that's just a feature factory, an AI-augmented feature factory, and your product idea might fail and turn into a very expensive hobby for your company.
I like that.
So what to do instead? Instead of just, I think with AI in the room, it's like understanding how it will augment you as a leader, how it will augment your thinking, how it will augment you in taking decision, that's the right thing, but also for the whole design process. Once you start the delivery, well, collapsing to zero is a good thing because it gives you more time to spend in the fuzzy front end. But you have to be very, very deliberate on where you spend your time and how much time you account for example, delivery or research. Yeah. And so I think the way I look at spending your time in the real world, in the reality of like a software R&D team like at ManyChat or at Mendix, it's like design should spend 20 to 30% on evolving the current and market experience. Everything what's already shipped should get better continuously. Then roughly 50% in building net new features. So the thing your customers want tomorrow or yesterday because your competitors already have shipped it. And then you need to reserve 30%, 20% for future thinking, really trying to leapfrog your competition, disrupting yourself, or however you want to call it. But that's, I think, a good measure of spending your time. However, if you can build anything, it's like this feature factory. It's like, I saw this, let me build this. This doesn't work because it's not intentional. And in order to make intentional decisions here, you need to build in a few checks and balances. And it's like, this is what we heard from our customers. This is what we see. What does it mean? This is why this is happening. And this is what it means for us in our context. Answering these questions opinionatedly first will put you in the position to take stronger educated guesses and bets when you start prompting and actually building solutions.
So I want to double click on that a bit, because has it changed your process for innovation? Because you mentioned, you're going to spend 20 to 30% of your time on innovation thinking. But surely these tools, even though that there will be a lot of like useless code produced, it also allows you to take a seed of an idea and make it 80% reality and test that hypothesis. So it allows you to test your hypothesis much faster. Have you defined any process on that, or like how does that? Has that changed the design process?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's like design sprints, or however you want to call them. Right? It's like when you start solutioning, when you start exploring ideas, well, you come with all these inputs. So these are design principles, these are attitudinal or behavioral change you want to see in your customers, how they behave in your app. You can describe this up front, but then it's prototyping, ideation, ideally co-creation with customers in the room is so much faster. And we are building that capability as we speak. But then it's still, in our case, we are not there yet to go straight from, our designers are not pushing to GitHub repos yet at ManyChat, but that would be my ultimate goal, to also build this into the delivery process. So currently, we are still in this second dimension. So currently, designers at ManyChat don't push code yet to GitHub. We are not part of that delivery. There's still a handover between designers and developers, but that will go away. That will just collapse, because you have teams at Intercom, for example, already doing that. They have guardrails, but designers through Cursor are empowered to, kill bugs, to change front end, to ship actual code to delivery, which is then making the whole delivery aspect faster. What we are doing currently is, we are using AI tooling for prototyping mostly, and then exploring ideas, co-creating with customers, or in some sort of design sprints that are now extremely collapsible. So instead of 5 days, you can do the whole thing in 2 or 3 if you have good input data and know where you want to go. You can test your ideas after a couple of hours even. And I think that's a real gift for the design community, because you can spend more time with actual problem solving and not trying to get, the interface right. You are trying to get the product right. But this is the part where it's about getting the right product and not trying to improve it. Because that's a big difference.
It's a little bit where everybody used to talk, make a paper prototype. The paper prototype doesn't, you can make it into a fully fledged prototype running on a device.
Exactly.
In the same amount of time it would make to cut those little boxes on a paper prototype, right?
Exactly. So all that stuff.
So the fidelity of things is just getting so much higher.
However, this is also can be a distraction, and so you really need to know what matters. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, if you can build everything, you know, then how do you choose what is the
Yeah.
right thing to build, and how do you also make sure that what you're building is fitting your customers' needs,
Yeah.
and then it's not just an extrapolation of you getting excited about all the possibilities you have with this tooling.
Yeah.
Because essentially the lines are blurring. I mean, engineers think they're designers, designers think they're engineers, PMs think they are any of these roles. So you, I think it's a myth to think that one person can carry all that legacy and
Yeah.
all that knowledge space, because that discourse between these roles and intentionality that comes with that knowledge, that needs to be built into the system.
Yeah.
And so, sure, there's the ceiling is, I mean, if this is the floor currently, I'm really excited to where the ceiling is going to be in 2 years. Things are going so extremely fast, and I believe it will augment teams. If you're able to augment teams in the right way, it will have the right effect. Otherwise, if you get this wrong, you just created a massive build trap, and you will generate so much waste that you will burn out your teams, and also your business upside will completely disappear.
You were touching on something that I also wanted to double click on. You know, that designers are about to push code to GitHub, and not yet, but at ManyChat. But basically, the roles are blurring. I listened to an interview with a manager at LinkedIn where he explained that they've been trying out a new role, which they call the full stack builder. Basically, that it doesn't matter where you come from, if you're a PM or a designer or engineer, thanks to AI, and by you augmenting the pieces in your capabilities that you cannot, maybe you're not trained on, everybody can get the ownership to take a feature or an initiative from idea to shipped product. Do you think that's where we will be ending up, or?
Yeah, I think that's the trend, but it's
Is
the
it
quality.
realistic?
Yeah, it's realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
you see design engineers pop up everywhere these days, and I
Yeah.
think, yeah, they're. I mean, should designers code? Well, I'm no, they don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
But you need to be able to describe what you want. So,
Yeah.
like the writing, like the ability to write and expressing your ideas, clearly is now the superpower. And that's the way I think you should get yourself ready for this future. And on the other hand, what we just talked about, you need the better ideas. The more high quality ideas. Because if you can build any idea, deciding which idea matters, and de-risk that before you start building, no matter how cheap it is, you know, you still might fail. And so this is, I think, the biggest risk here would be to discard this body of knowledge we are sitting on, in design, in futures research, also when it comes to engineering. It's like there is this whole body of knowledge that, well, was used to create brilliant products, brilliant industrial design that couldn't afford an iterative process. I think software is the only...
The constraints force them to
Exactly.
make the decision.
I mean, show me an automotive brand that... I mean, there are some examples where some launches spectacularly failed, but they're doing the work up front.
Yeah.
And people call it waterfall, call that what you want, but this is they're de-risking everything that needs to de-risk in order for this product to be successful. What I see teams struggle with, mostly an experienced team, is going from output guided to outcome guided feature development.
Yeah.
Because it's like, hey, let's build this because we can build it. No, it should be turned into something. What are the user needs? What are the
What's
outcomes?
the problem we're solving?
What are the outcomes? Yes, exactly. What is the real problem to solve for here? It's like, are you just building a shiny toy?
Yeah.
Or is that the real deal? You know, it's like I think that's the question you need to ask yourself as a product builder. Are you building the right thing, or are you just trying to get something right, or building your pet project or something you fell in love with?
That's a nice segue to the next topic, actually, because with everything now becoming so blurred and you can build anything,
Yes.
it becomes more pressure on the leader. So how do you see the role of the design leader right now? And how does it need, what's the most important part for the design leader, and how do you think it needs to change, if any?
Well, I think design leaders currently, the main role of the design leader is currently to set a clear vision and to assess reality and then help the team and, well, the functions around them to ladder up to that vision. And that means that you absorb the tension between your vision and the reality on the ground.
Yeah.
Because there might be a fundamental gap. There might be, that you have a very long way to go until you get to that ideal state that you can describe. But I would say that's the fundamental job of a design leader.
And okay, so how does that look like on a day-to-day basis? How does a day look like for Alex being a design leader?
I think misguided action is the biggest risk in fast-moving companies. We just talked about that. And so the role of a design leader is to articulate a vision and helping people get there, because vision without action is just hallucination. And operationalizing the vision, making sure the capabilities are there, building an operating system that can get us into that future state. That's the job of a design leader. And so on a day-to-day basis, that means hiring the right people. The first job in a hyperscaling company is talent acquisition. And that is most of my time, if I look at my agenda. So I would say let's keep it with talent acquisition. The second job of a design leader is to train your team of what inputs you need in order to do your job. What is the information they need to funnel up your way that you can either help them make a difficult decision or de-escalate the situation when people are stuck. I think that's something that's equally important than hiring. So helping people grow their capacity to do their job well in a certain context and getting more and more comfortable with taking decisions that they are not used to taking.
The direct reports of
the direct reports, because I think the only way to survive hyperscale is to push responsibility down relentlessly until the moment that you are very, very uncomfortable with that.
So what makes a good versus a bad design leader? What's the most underrated leadership quality, in your opinion?
I think the most underrated leadership quality is self-awareness. I think.
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. It is the ability to, because I think as a design leader, you need to really holding this tension, being able to hold the tension between vision and reality. You need to practice. You need to feel comfortable with that tension. There's more tension that you need to absorb, but that's, I think, the first one. Without losing your mind, or it's like getting uncomfortable or getting impatient. That's like that requires self-awareness. That will require you to understand what triggers you or what are the things that excite you. So really learning about yourself, what your values are, and knowing what your values are and being able to operate and decide in a split second based on your experience, that requires self-awareness, practice, and I would even say daily practice.
Can you expand on that? What's a daily practice for
My daily practice,
Alex?
for me, that starts with some breath work, some breathing exercises, so to really ground myself when I wake up. Then I take a cold shower and I have my own little yoga ritual. So a couple of asanas, and then I sit down for a moment of calm, so to start my day with intent. So simply calming down, sitting, and seeing what shows up. And during the day, sometimes I do a walking meditation, to really try to grounding myself when things are intense.
Yeah.
I just need a little bit of time for myself.
And how does that translate into your workday then? Or like how does it kind of like help you absorb that tension? Is that because you have grounded yourself and you can be intentional what you need to do, or?
No, so this daily practice for me is like the bare minimum I need to stay performative under pressure. I have also my hobbies, you know, so one day a week I go fighting,
Yeah.
I go bouldering with my 7-year-old on Saturdays. I lift some weights when there's some extra time, but you know, having this baseline, let's say daily practice, is something that helps me stay grounded and just fit enough to deal with the cortisol that comes with the job. And no, I think daily practice is, if you want to get really good at something, there's no way around developing a daily practice. And for me, in leadership, that means that, developing the self-awareness, but also the self-care, that you take care of your body, that you are, you know, that you try to dissolve the tensions that are there, that you return to baseline every day instead of staying on this peak and burning yourself out. So for me, experiencing stress and high intensity, I think this is something that I love about my job. That's something a leader needs to be able to absorb. But you are responsible for returning to baseline. And if your week looks like this, you know, with these spikes, I believe there's no amount of stress that can derail you, because you're returning to baseline and you're making an intentional effort to ground yourself, to understand where you are, what's going inside of yourself. And that's what I mean with self-awareness and daily practice.
Very cool. So you mentioned that talent acquisition is one of the biggest part of your job.
Yeah.
So if we go into that next, how do you build a great design team, and what's your approach to hiring?
Wow. So first, building a great design team also starts with a vision and assessing reality. So auditing what's there, understanding the capabilities that the team has internally or has access to externally through freelancers or other contracts. And once you have a good picture of what's going on and where you want to go, you need to bring in capabilities that will deliver business results.
Yeah.
So you need to understand the goals of the business and how you can build a function that will deliver these results long term. So I'm not talking about, there's always fires to put out, but you have to have a long-term vision where you want to take a team and what you will need, well, half a year down the line, 1 year down the line. So it's a bit like a roadmap that you need to build for like building these capabilities. And that means you're going to bring in new people, but also you need to raise the bar for the internal talent. You will have to help people, you know, train these new skills that you're also bringing in. So it's like you're scaling externally and you're scaling internally, but that's all part of the same roadmap. And hiring hiring for capabilities means that you identify your organization's blind spots and then hire against them. And so that starts with, for me, like a very practical tip I can give people is starting every role description, job description, not with a boilerplate template or something you ripped from another design leader's role description.
Exactly.
But writing it with intent and matching the goals and the objective of the role to what the team actually needs and the organization actually needs.
Yeah, because before we started recording, you mentioned that you're not hiring for roles, you're hiring for capabilities and blind spots.
Yes.
Which I think makes a lot of sense in theory, but in practice, I can see that it becomes difficult to form something that attracts the right candidates. So how do you go about
that?
How do you set up a recruitment process, or like where do you start?
So I think the recruitment process itself is a phenomenal design challenge. And I have a very systematical and intentional hiring process. So from that roadmap, that capability roadmap, where you want to bring your function with internal and external scaling, it then comes to these roles that team splitting or new teams forming or, new business capabilities that are needed because you need to do a certain kind of research or you need, a design engineer down the line and nobody in your team has these skills. I approached hiring as I approached any other design challenge, actually. So I'm now in the 5th iteration of my design hiring or talent acquisition framework.
Yeah.
And it constantly evolved over the last 7 years. And for me, the most important part is getting the job description right. Trying to describe the reality on the ground, matching what the candidate will find with what you're describing in the job descriptions is your first job.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like a role description, oh, I need a senior designer, but you will be very deliberate and overt with the capabilities that you're looking for and what they will be contributing.
Yes. And also what the success, will success look like? You really know. So you can simply ask yourself to put a stake in the ground, you can run this as a workshop. This is an idea I got from Chris Avor, who is a design leader, who wrote a book called Liftoff. I think you can put this in the show notes. He calls it a performance profile workshop. And so you start with saying what will get this person fired, what will make them quit. And that's just to get the team. It's almost like an icebreaker question. And then you fill in together with the team, what will this person do during their first year and what will get them promoted? And with that, you synthesize that into the objectives that are tailored to the role, but also the team context.
Yeah.
And if you then bring that together with that roadmap we talked about, that you need certain skills down the line, or you want to, for example, in the case of ManyChat, we are hiring a data designer. We don't have anyone in the team that has high-end information design skills. Well, that's a capability to bring in. It has a certain team context, but you need to be very intentional what you are asking, because you can only attract top talent when you also know how to describe their reality and really
and how they will succeed.
Yes, exactly. But also knowing what you're looking for is really important. Also knowing the capabilities well, being able to describe them in a way that you can also lead these people later to keep them motivated. You need to have that knowledge also in-house, otherwise you will lose them down the line as well.
I love that. Very cool. So why they would quit and how they get promoted.
Yeah.
Nice. Moving on a little bit, one thing that I wanted to ask you was in keeping people trained, and it's like self-interest here, but holding space for people to upskill with AI is a question I face now a lot. It's like, what's your, because there's all these tools coming out all the time. Every time I open up LinkedIn, some new model is released.
Yes.
And it's quite stressful for the people that just might have, mastered or, gotten the grasp of one image model, and next time they come, the next week it's an expectation that they will use another one. How do you set up your team to succeed in that very fast learning cycle?
That's a really good question, and that's really difficult because it ultimately comes down to your ability to self-regulate and go to bed when it's time. Because it's prompting is so addictive. I mean, I'm working with Claude Code and Obsidian and Cursor. We have all the tooling. It's like Notion has, like all the models built in. We have Gemini in Google Drive. So we have Figma Make. We experiment with Lovable. So right now, I think where we are, AI makes work more intense. So it's really, really important to know your limits and also be very intentional how you're spending your time with these tools, because you might lose it completely.
Yeah, but I think for you, and you strike me as someone that is, you love learning new things, and you will probably go outside of the office to learn up
all the time
about something new.
All the time.
But how that not necessarily for the members of the team.
Yes.
So how do you kind of balance setting expectation on them to learn new things, and at the same time creating the space for them to do that?
Well, so creating the space is the hardest thing, especially when delivery is so relentless, right?
Yeah.
It's like we work in 2-week sprints, and then we are now building in more intentional rhythm in our, let's say, sprint calendar. And so there's time for sprints to incorporate, to integrate, but also to explore and for learning. And so there, I think the way we do that with the design team is also having people share their experience.
Yeah.
And we have these
And you have
weekly rituals.
okay. So
we have these weekly rituals that people can take, to share what they have learned, and just giving very practical tips. That could be in the form of a Slack thread, or just somebody, sharing how they are prompting or how they are using Lovable. And that also happens in like more interactive workshops, or when it comes to, for example, design sprints.
Yeah.
There are some designers that have mastered this,
Yeah.
and that they will lift everybody else around them just by co-locating people that have differing skills, a bit like an apprenticeship model.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to get people to upskill, because you cannot demand someone to grow. What I'm trying to do, so after hiring, I think how you help someone discover their purpose and where they ultimately want to go with their career is another important aspect here of design leadership. Because, once you hired someone and what you promised matches the reality on the ground, and through their first year, what will keep them there is if you can help them uncover, how to move towards their wildest dreams and not towards the skill that's needed today or tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at that, helping people articulate their purpose through one-on-ones, through growth conversations, there are great frameworks there that you can apply. I'm thinking of Kim Scott's Radical Candor framework.
Yeah.
She does this with 3 conversations, so a life story, a dream story, and then a capability story. So you create your own learning roadmap, but you need to do that deliberately for each person, and you need to tie it to their own purpose. And that way you can help people generate that enthusiasm to grow by themselves. When it comes to AI and these tools, I would, what I'm trying to do now that I'm hitting a ceiling now with Cursor. I mean, I have Cursor, I have Claude Code in the terminal. So the most liberating thing about this is, like, if I'm stuck, I can tell Claude to
get you unstuck.
or install certain things for me. And I think that's a real empowering, like this mental shift thinking is like, it already has read all the books.
Yeah.
I'm the one that sort of tries to discover new stuff, but I'm following my intuition. I have other qualities, that I can bring into this conversation. But it's like making this mental shift and saying, you don't need to know everything, you just need to know what to ask.
Yeah.
You really need to know the intention, the intent. I think it comes down to that for me. And with teaching your team, I think for myself, I will go to the one-on-one Anthropic prompt course. Just really build your technical capabilities. Are you able to articulate these checkpoints? With continuous deployment or continuous integration, there are usually these tests that are kicking off, that are running. It's like similar to that. If you're building an operating system as a design leader and you want to bring AI into the mix, you need to be very intentional where you place it. And building this operating system and vibe coding maybe, the next Figma, they do Lovable, I don't know, Miro integration. I think that's with all the MCPs coming up. I think that's probably the most liberating thing you could do. But where do you start?
So what I'm hearing is that you need to be intentional also with the individual. Like,
Yes.
hey, what is their purpose
Yes.
within the organization? What is it they are looking to get out of their journey with the team? What makes it the work meaningful to them?
Yes.
And then figure out together which AI tools, if any, helps them move along that path.
Yes. And I think also evaluate the work and the outcomes.
Yeah.
And really have a hard look. Are you generating real value?
Yeah.
Or is this just,
Veneer.
Yeah, veneer or like a smoke screen? And so I think, testing your ideas and understanding, really evaluating, looking at reality, what we talked about before. It's like taking a really hard look at reality and not bullshitting yourself where you actually are. I think this is the most important skill.
So can you explain a little bit more on what's a typical use case of how you apply AI at the ManyChat design team?
So internally, the way we work with that is, we use all the tools. So we have a ChatGPT Pro subscription. Mm-hmm. There is Claude Code is now available. You can get Cursor if you want. Notion is fully unlocked. So Gemini is running. So we are not mincing around with access to the tools. And I'm encouraging every designer to download Cursor and to get started with just prompting, maybe even experimenting with their own operating system, building something. I've built my own portfolio, integrating my Obsidian as a CSM just by asking the right question to Cursor and understanding, learning on the side about certain technical limitations, or also how I could make something very, very, very effective.
Yeah.
And I think that like first having access to these tools, but then also setting like the limitations there, helping people to being productive. I think this is going to be the frontier for design leaders, because you might be betting on the wrong platform. You might be betting on the wrong approach, but I think what you need to get right is, how do you approach this experimentation? How do you build an operating system that does not slow people down, but actually augments them and also does not burn them out? Because it's like this stress that you describe, everybody feels it. My team is discussing that in the Slack channels. And I think sharing that openly and asking each other for coping mechanisms and how to deal with that, that's, I think, the right way. But it's also, I think, the awareness that the current, let's say the marketing out there, it's designed to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm very enthusiastic about AI capabilities, but I'm also, very realistic that there is no intelligence in AI. It's just pattern recognition. And so I believe that LMMs will get us to a future where you can collapse delivery to zero, where you can shorten certain cycles, and where you can work extremely intentional, but that will take an upfront and long-term investment. That's not something that will happen overnight. And it's a very intentional design exercise. And if you want to invent the future, knowing what LLMs do, which is pattern recognition, you need novel ideas, and they need to come from somewhere else. The data that's already there is not going to be what will take you to where you want to go tomorrow. It will make things more effective. It will help you uncover patterns that you have overlooked. It's able to process a lot more data than anyone in your team. However, it's not able to dream up new stuff. That's only humans that are able to bring that leapfrogging, that kind of thinking to a design process. So from deductive thinking, and pattern recognition towards inductive reasoning, saying, hey, 1 + 1 is actually 3. And having this opinionated, perspective, building an opinionated product, not just AI slop that everybody is building, because this is the biggest risk I see. Everything starts looking the same.
Yeah.
Every lovable, it's like, every vibe coding workshop you can go to these days, people it's baked into the models. And so if you want to differentiate yourself,
Oh, the look and feel, you mean?
yeah, the look and feel, and also the solutions and the voice, and so we are all turning into this gray thing in the
A
middle.
little bit of purple and a circular logo.
It's all the same, and so that's really, I mean, very obvious to me. But I think people that are very enthusiastic, well, gloss over that bit. And if you want to differentiate yourself in the market, intentional branding, intentional positioning, sometimes doing the opposite might be the right thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's that's something that requires a lot more thinking, and I would also say experience. But I'm very enthusiastic about where this is going.
So when we had a pre-chat, we talked about. I mean, ManyChat is an AI company somewhere. You know, it's automating communication on the behalf of its customer.
Yes.
You touched on the biggest challenge with that, letting a system operate on someone's behalf. Can you talk about different cultural differences you're dealing with?
Oh, well, so the biggest issue when it comes to an AI running your customer interactions is, do you trust that system, you know, to represent you, to mimic you, to, you know, the right tone of voice, you know, saying the right things, answering the questions in the right way without any drift, you know, in tone or in the brand you're trying to build. This is
because
a massive challenge.
People that are using ManyChat, like for their audiences, so basically it's the comment to DM, and it triggers different automations.
Follow to DM, that sort of stuff. There's different automations. You can even build like very complicated funnels, but for the creator market, we are building these templates that are fitting their unique use cases, because they don't want to build a marketing funnel. They just want to save time, right?
And also from their audience's perspective, they in some cases think that they are having a one-to-one conversation with the creator.
Absolutely.
So,
well, there's so much going on there. This is quite the rabbit hole. But if you look at it, for example, if you can compare the market in the US, for example, if you look at LA, like Creator Central.
Yeah, creator economy is for anyone who's an actor, their side hustle is, or maybe it becomes their primary hustle, the creator economy.
I mean, the creator economy, it's like the projection, the scale is gigantic, right? And so this is going somewhere. And I think it's really empowering for these people, but it's like in LA, it's like hustle culture. It's like people are extremely commercial. It's like they really know, you know, it's like how to position themselves, and might be extremely effective already, have a strong positioning, have a strong story. So we might see less automations in our system, but they might be making a lot of money, even though in a very effective way. When you look at Germany, for example, people are a lot more hesitant. People don't give away their data. People don't click on stuff. I mean, creators there would rather have the ability to have a check mark next to an automated message. Hey, this is my influencer bot, or this is an automated message, because they don't want to build the trust, and breaking trust in Germany means you need to tell people
what you're doing,
or, you know, at least give them a choice to judge for themselves. Do I want to talk to an automated creator, or do I only value them when they show up in my DMs and they're really chatting to me? Because most creators, once they hit scale, and if they are viral and if they're not using ManyChat, they will have to answer DMs 2 hours a day. And a lot of people doing that because they are so intentional with their brand building, because they want to build that human connection. However, that doesn't scale. And so this is really the fine line, and it's very culturally dependent how creators deal with that, but there are so many ways this can go. And in the end, probably we will have models talking to models. Your model will talk to my model, and then the whole discussion is mediated, and we don't...
Exactly, then we can have a beer while this podcast records itself.
Yes, or go surfing.
That's great.
I would love that.
Since the show is called Delivered, I have to ask, what's the best or hardest thing that you have delivered so far?
I would say the Mendix design team and function, because 4 years in, I could go on a sabbatical, and the teams kept shipping.
And then it
major
had grown
releases.
from 5 people up to 40 people.
Yes, up to 40 people. I mean, I hired my replacement or the person next in line. So I brought in a design director that was running the show when I was gone. However, I think making yourself replaceable is the real achievement as a design leader. If you are not the single point of failure or decision making, I think that's a good thing, especially if you're scaling a company and if you're at hyperscale, because you will get to your limits very, very fast. And that means you're pushing responsibility down to your team, but you're also building the operating system, and you are building, you are creating the guardrails, the design principles, the heuristics for people to act on, well, the behalf of the company, the behalf of the customer. I don't believe that design leaders hold that perspective as a single genius. It's really about working with different perspectives and allowing people to operate as autonomously as they can.
Very cool. And that's it. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, George.
And thanks everybody who made it all the way here. And this was Delivered, where we talked with Alex about how to think about the leadership role in design when AI has entered the chat. Before you go, some of the standard stuff is that, of course, we would like you to, if you find this insightful, share it with a friend, and also rate the podcast wherever you listen to it, so on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or those kind of things, because it really helps with the searchability of the podcast. And if you want to make sure to get the next episode when it drops, you can subscribe also to the podcast where you find it, but also on Infinium.com/delivered. My name is Georges. Thank you for tuning in.